So, but usually by the time you encounter business owners, you're reviewing an insurance policy they purchased.
Mm-hmm.
So, would you say typically for companies, is it the standard business owners policy, or do they normally go different? Do you normally see different?
Well, there are different kinds of insurance policies for different types of risks that you want to manage. Most business owners have a BOP, a BOP policy,
Mm-hmm.
sort of a general premises liability, professional liability. If you've got employees that are driving around, they get in an accident, that's kind of what's implicated there. If somebody comes in and steals your computers or your sprinklers go off and shuts you down, that's usually, or if a client sues you, then you would want to have directors and officers
And BOB is
insurance.
usually considered the economical route for small business owners. Would you agree?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. You just get your standard BOP policy and you go to business. I definitely don't recommend being a business owner with no insurance. You got to have some coverage.
Mm-hmm.
Your bank might force you to have coverage, but the property, it's the P&C policy that I'm looking at more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
We sue for property damage. And so you want to have a property and casualty policy if you have any kind of large physical assets that are exposed to casualty risk, like hail, fire, windstorms, theft, those kind of physical assets you want to have properly insured. And we're looking at, do you have adequate coverage? Is your deductible reasonable? Do you have any nasty exclusions that you might not have expected or that you can't live with? And it's best to have your insurance policy reviewed by an attorney, because sometimes the brokers struggle to adequately explain and educate their consumers, and they're just selling them on the lowest price premium.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes you get what you pay for with insurance, and you end up, and so never ask your broker, give me the cheapest policy, because there's nothing more expensive than cheap insurance when that risk arises.
Yeah.
So if you're asking for the lowest premium, you're going to get a super high deductible. So when the risk happens, you end up paying for it yourself, and you're like, why did I have insurance if it's under my deductible? And you're going to end up with some nasty exclusions, or they're going to have some forum selection clause that forces you to go into arbitration in New York City, and you're like, I live in Tampa, this makes no sense. So get good insurance, and if you don't know, if you can't trust your broker for that, consult with an attorney.
And I wouldn't even call it mistrust. It's really in my opinion, it sometimes comes across as willful ignorance, right? So I wouldn't even say, because usually people go with agents that they know personally. So don't look at it as you don't trust this person, but just look at it as this person may be ignorant to it. And ignorance isn't a terrible word. I'm ignorant to building a NASA rocket, but that don't make me any less of a person, right? So, what type of attorney should these people who hold? Because I know a lot of people starting out will have that BOP, and a lot of people who are dealing with a lot more risk might have that property and casualty. What type of attorney are they taking their insurance policy to get reviewed?
Well, you should go to a first-party attorney, which means I represent the person that's named by the insurance policy. First-party property and casualty insurance litigator. That's technically what you want to look for. Although the insurance policy is a contract, it's a unique type of contract with a unique body of law behind it and interpreting it. And so a general contracts lawyer isn't necessarily the best bet. And not to cast any shade on them, but again, what I said about specializing, you want to talk to somebody who specializes in suing insurance companies, because that's what happens when they don't pay. And they're going to know better than any other attorney what these policies mean. And what I found is oftentimes an unfortunate situation is an HOA or a business owner will have their cousin, who's an attorney, handle their insurance claim. And it turns out their cousin's a divorce attorney.
Yeah.
Or they're just general counsel. They're not actually a litigator, so they don't know the judges.
Some horror stories,
or they don't.
man.
They're not.
Yeah,
they're not. Yeah, and the claim value
you
goes
and
to
I
zero.
have heard some horror stories of people hiring attorneys that, family members that do not deal with insurance claims, man, and
Right.
man, it can completely devastate a claim. It can.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to know your rights. You have to, in order to assert them, and sometimes that requires going through some procedures. It requires using the magic words. And if you don't go through the right procedures, you don't phrase things right, then you end up defeating yourself in your own litigation. So talk to a specialist. That's all I could say about that.